A very good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here on this wonderful morning. I'm going to talk to you today about how to build a business that's profitable yet socially responsible. And I'm going to take you through certain glimpses of my life and my journey, which brought me to this decision to quit the corporate world and do something which I believe will have a huge impact on the society. I started my career as a door-to-door salesperson. How many of you know door-to-door salespeople, right? You've seen the door-to-door salespeople. So I started as a door-to-door salesperson in Breach Candy, went on into a corporate career, which you heard about, and then as I moved up the ranks, I was very grateful to the Lord that I could make it to the top. But I said, okay, this is great. Done the corporate thing. I said, let's try entrepreneurship. But I was yet not certain that I could quit and set up something on my own. So I started with what's called the intrapreneurship, which is get an idea within my company, get funding, created a new business, and moved into that business to set up this new company. So I did that successfully and moved from New York to Hong Kong. When I finished that, I said, now I'm ready to get into the world of social entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurship basically. In my journey around various continents, I was on the World Economic Forum, doing panels, and I heard a lot of big global leaders, business heads, billion-dollar CEOs come and say the big issues of the world: pollution, corruption, malnutrition, health. All these issues were being talked about, and all of these discussions ended with one simple solution to all these problems, and that was education. So I said, hey, here is something where all the problems in the world, if we have an educated, ethically conscious, environmentally conscious students who go out into the world and make an impact, we will be able to create a tsunami of response, a tsunami of impact. So that's what got me into this whole idea of setting up an educational institution. Now that's the idea. What happens after the idea? The idea is just the starting point. Once you've got this idea, you then have to write 100 pages on this idea. If you can't write 100 pages, this is not an idea worth pursuing. You will have gaps in your understanding. You will have gaps in your thoughts of how do I do the marketing strategy, how do I put the product out there, go to market, and so on and so forth. These are all things you will be thinking. Go out there, do all the research you can, fill it back, put it back in your plan till that plan starts talking to you. That plan will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It'll start telling you, it'll build your confidence. Now you've got a decent plan. What happens next? You go into the market. You talk to your friends, your family. You share the plan. Multiple people. They will critique it. They will ask you questions. They will find holes in your plan. Great, you incorporate all of that back into the plan. So then it becomes a stronger plan, something you are confident that you can hit the world with. Okay, now we have a decent plan. Then we move to the next stage of the ideation process, which is stress testing the idea. Now, no business plan person will tell you this, but I believe that whatever you've thought is the revenues in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, imagine you get half the revenue. And imagine whatever costs you've predicted over that journey, you get double the costs, right? You're halving the revenue, doubling the cost. Is it the plan still going to work? Is it going to still work? And that will tell you that, okay, I'm now committed to this idea. Financially, emotionally, I'm now there. I've got my head around this idea. Now I move to the next stage of the ideation process, which is passion, right? Ideas without passion go no place, right? You need to put in a lot of effort. You're going to go to tens of thousands of people talking about your idea, and they're going to slam the door. They're going to say, we're not interested. They're going to say, this doesn't work. They're going to call you out and say, you know what? This is not going to work for you. Now, how do you pull this through? So I'm going to give you a little story glimpse about how, as a door-to-door salesman, I had to deal with this issue. Right? I used to go door-to-door selling in Bombay. Bombay is, as you know, professional city, right? Both husband and wife go to work. So if you have to be a door-to-door salesperson in Bombay, you have to hit the target market at 6 in the morning, right? Imagine how happy will your mother be at 6 in the morning if I'm going to ring your bell. Not too happy, right? She's wondering what's happening here. Now, you ring the bell, you say, good morning, ma'am, I'm from whichever company you represent. And what happens? She goes, bam! Right? The door goes slamming in your face. She doesn't want to hear you. You try it again, you get doors slammed on your face. It's very depressing. You're like, my God, how am I going to do this? I've got a target. If I don't achieve the target, I'm going to get fired. And if I achieve the target, great, but nobody's willing to listen to me. By the time you even get to the door, there used to be lots of gates in Bombay City who had a board around them. What was the board saying? Dogs and salesmen aren't allowed, right? So you're told you're equivalent to a dog. So that's what you're feeling right now. You're knocking on doors, you're getting doors slammed on your face. It was very depressing, very, very upsetting. I came up with an idea. I'm going to share that idea on the condition that you don't tell anybody this idea, okay? So the idea was, how do I get inside the door? So imagine this, you're the mother, it's 6 in the morning, I've rang your bell, you're got up very groggy, you're thinking like, oh my God, who's come here? Is it the milkman or so on and so forth? And so you walk to the door, ding dong, you open the door. I'm like, good morning, ma'am, I'm from HSBC. I know what's going to happen, right? I know what's going to happen. The door is going to slam on my face. So what did I do? I went, bam! Now I'm inside your door, right? I've crossed the threshold, so the door is going to hit me on my leg, sometimes hard because if they're angry, sometimes slowly. But the reaction was the same. The door would hit me on my leg, and I'd go, thud, 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 falling on the floor. And I'd get up and say, ma'am, I think I've hurt. Now, where did we grow up? All of us? Bombay. Bombay is known for Bollywood, right? Acting. So I got a few tips that you need to put a little glycerine on your eye and twitch it so that that teardrop comes at the right time, right? So you look into the mother's eye and you say, I think I'm really hurt. Just can I have a painkiller and I'm going to go. Now she's feeling bad. All our mothers have beautiful hearts, right? They're wonderful people. She's thinking because of her, someone has fallen on the doorstep. So she would come in and she's like, okay, I'll get you a glass of water and a painkiller. She would go and get the glass of water, painkiller, water, painkiller, water. I'm just about to have the painkiller. And I was like, ma'am, I think I've not had breakfast today. Now I'm not asking for a double cheese omelette with French fries and toast, right? All I'm asking for is a cup of tea. Now, every mother's beautiful heart, she's committed to this kind act, so she would tend to go and make that chai, right? It'd take 5-7 minutes to make the chai, 5-7 minutes to drink the tea, bam, 15 minutes, sale done. All I needed was time. Nobody was giving me even 2 seconds of time, and here, I have all the time in the world, right? To do the pitch. Then it was Ghanti Fall Painkiller Chai Sale, Ghanti Fall Painkiller Chai Sale, Ghanti Fall Painkiller Chai Sale, one shot, sometimes 6 painkillers. Yeah, I know, I see that look, this guy is crazy, right? But that's what I'm trying to tell you. You're going to get doors slammed. Why am I telling you this story? Doors are going to continuously slam on your face. Either find a way through the door, or there's always another door. There's always another option of doing the same thing slightly better, innovate, think out of the box, keep trying, don't give up. Because if your idea is, and your passion about that idea to create social change is very, very deep inside you, then you're not going to give up. No door is going to be enough. Let 1,000 doors shut on your face, it does not matter, right? So now we've got the idea, and we've now got the passion behind the idea. Now comes the most important thing, plunging in, taking the risk. Friends, you heard about me becoming a global CEO at a young age. The only reason that was possible, friends, because I have taken 1,000,000 risks in my life and failed 1,000,000 times. Wait a minute, that equation doesn't make sense. You've made it to the top of the corporate ladder, and you're saying on the same point, you failed 1,000,000 times. Something doesn't sound. Let me give you another equation, which will help you answer the first equation, and that is, when you risk, you fail, you learn. The person who doesn't take any risks has 0 failures, 0 learnings. In this competitive world that you're all getting into, right? It's a VUCA world. I'm sure you've heard the term VUCA. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. This world is getting disruptive. Businesses are dying every week, month. If you don't know how to deal with this fast-moving, fast-paced, unpredictable world, the only way to deal with it is learning, failing, constantly learning, constantly failing, constantly learning. So for me, it is actually, I risk, I even forget the failure part. In fact, when I fail, I'm like, yeah, I learn. Most of you have this stigma that failure means, oh my God, what will my family say? What will my parents say? What will XYZ person say? friends, if you really want to get into the hard world of entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship, remember, you're going to fail 1,000,000 times. And only then will you succeed. So embrace failure. That's the only way forward. So you've now got the risk side of the equation. Let me explain it with another slight, simple example. Let's say we go out there into this beautiful lawns, beautiful flowers, lovely Arabian breeze, and I say, how are you doing? They're like, wow, we're doing very well. Guys, I have just released, I'm now adding some information to you. I've just released 50 or 100 poisonous cobras in the lawns. You know what's going to happen to you? The moment you hear us, you're going to go like, oh, like, you know, the slightest, you're going to start seeing what you've not seen before. You're going to start hearing what you've not heard. What have I done? I've added risk to the equation. Suddenly, you're transformed. Your senses are, your faculties have expanded. It's been scientifically proved, friends, that we use less than 90% of our brain power. So when you take risks, when you push yourself to take more risks, you start expanding yourself. And that's very, very important if you want to grow, right? You want to learn new things, you've got to take that plunge. So I would really encourage you to go into this world thinking taking risks is an amazing thing, right? And failure is the only way we can succeed is if we failed multiple times. Now, so you've now got through the point that, yes, I'm going to take this huge risk. I now need to go into action mode because talking is cheap, right? So I'm going to tell you how smashing the deadlines can change your life completely. Action-oriented, timing-oriented. I was in London. I had a Brit boss. We had 4 Brits, 2 Americans, 1 German, 1 French, 1 Australian, 1 Japanese, 1 Chinese, 1 Brazilian, and me, Indian. We were part of a global management team. We came up with this decision to do an acquisition in Germany, in Frankfurt, Germany. So my boss said, we need to do due diligence. Due diligence is essentially the part of looking at the balance sheet, looking at the assets, looking at the synergies, the technology, the people, and so on and so forth, right? So you put that all together. Who will do the due diligence? So my good friend from Germany puts up his hand and says, sir, I will do the due diligence. I understand the German market. Okay, great. Now my good friend from New York, colleague, put up his hand. I'll do the due diligence. So the first guy was asked, how long will you take for the due diligence? He said 2 months. The second guy from America, the Americans always like to get one up on the Europeans, so he put up his hand and he said, I'll do the due diligence, it'll take me 1 month. So they started arguing, no, we have to do this analysis, that analysis, so on and so forth. I put up my hand. My boss said, Tarun, what do you say? I said, I'll do the due diligence, I'll take 2 weeks. So the German and the American who were arguing with each other suddenly pounced onto me saying, you don't know anything, you've come from India, you have no idea about the European markets, this is not something you should be doing, you need so much time, blah, blah, blah. So they were pouncing on me. I was like, my boss came in between, no, let Tarun do it. I said, okay. So here I go, I fly the very next day to Frankfurt, I land in Frankfurt, guess what? I've never done due diligence in my life, right? There, so now I've put my back to the wall, I've worked 15, 18, 20-hour days. 14 days later, I have my due diligence report. I go and submit it to my boss. He looks at it, glances through it, and he finds certain errors, and my heart is sinking. Oh my God, I'm going to get fired, right? I've taken this big leap of faith. At the end, he kept going, and he finished the document, and he said, but it's got enough for us to take it to the next stage of due diligence, which is signing an NDA and financial closure. I was very thrilled. Long story short, 6 months later, I get a call from my boss, and he says, Tarun, why don't we have dinner in New York? So I fly to New York. At the dinner, my boss opens a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne, and he says, congratulations, Tarun, you're the new global CEO of the treasury business. I was like, wow! Literally out of the blue, right? I was like blown away. This is not true. Because all my colleagues, remember the Americans, the Germans, they were 10 to 15 years senior to me, and from Ivy League schools, and I was not from there, any of that. So why me was my question to my boss. Why me? And he said just one thing. You know how to smash the deadline. I said, what do you mean by that, Mark? He said, remember that day when we were having that discussion on due diligence, if you hadn't put up your hand for a 2-week due diligence, we would have lost this $20 million asset because our competitor had already made a competitive bid. So the world of business is highly competitive. Timing is everything. whichever business you get into, timing is everything, right? So you've got to make sure that you make that jump. And he said, because I'm looking for heads of businesses who can smash the deadline. And there I was like, wow, right? Something which I had done, which would make a difference. Now, you've done all of this. You're now set with your business idea. Last point, you've got to stay the course. It's going to take tough time. So when I went into this business of setting up a school, it took me, I had to liquidate all my financial assets, sell everything I owned, my property, leverage myself to the hilt, went to 20 banks, got rejected, nonstop, right? You've got to stay that course. You've got to believe in your idea. Today, I can proudly say the banks are now chasing us. And I had this beautiful call from a student of mine. She called me from Delhi saying, sir, I want to share some good news with you. I said, yeah, sure. She said, I got into my dream company of Google. And I was like, wow, you made my day. She said, you made my life. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.